Hello, and welcome to my 10-minute training on squashing the imposter syndrome. So we'll start with the basics here. I feel relatively confident actually that imposter syndrome doesn't necessarily need an introduction, but just to be thorough, let's take a quick second here. What is imposter syndrome? So imposter syndrome is a feeling that you don't deserve your success, or perhaps a feeling that you're faking your accomplishments and there's a fear that you'll be discovered as a fraud. So let me know, as I read through these, drop it in the comments and let me know what your thoughts are here. If you've ever experienced any of these things, or perhaps if you still experience some of these things. You experience self-doubt around your achievements or your abilities. You think that everyone else knows more than you do, and especially those who have been doing it for the same amount of time or longer than you. You worry that you won't meet others' expectations. Or when you receive praise, you question the authenticity. Perhaps you think that person's just being nice or trying to make you feel good. And why am I qualified to talk about this here with you today? Well, first and foremost, I've experienced imposter syndrome. I still do visit that place every now and then. But the important part there is that I have, through my work and over time, come up with tools to overcome the imposter syndrome, to not just jump over it, but to work through it and discover what's really under there, what's showing up. Is there really something that needs to be improved upon, or is it perhaps a fear hiding under there? All right, so before I go on with imposter syndrome, let me tell you a little bit about who I am. My name is Heather Jones, and I am a certified life coach. And I am also certified in somatics, meaning dealing with the body. So I help clients to reconnect the stuff that's going on in the head with what's going on in their body. Often we become very disconnected with our body, and most of us don't even realize that our body is giving us notices and triggers that something is going on. But we don't necessarily understand that that's happening or realize that that's happening. And so I help clients to reconnect that so their body can be an indication to them that, hey, you need to pay attention. And so outside of that, very briefly, I am a mom, a wife, a hardcore animal lover. And if there's anything else you want to know about me, just ask. Okay. So what causes imposter syndrome? There are quite a few things that can cause imposter syndrome, and some of them I'm not necessarily going to speak on today. There are things that stem from childhood, the way that you were raised. But for the purposes of why we're here today, the ones that I wanted to touch on with you are perfectionism, comparisonitis, and low self-confidence. And so the perfectionism is a term that we hear frequently, but how it typically shows up is not wanting to put something out because it's never quite right. You never feel like it's good enough. There can be a lot of procrastination involved. Or if you do put something out or complete something, it's nitpicking it, going back and just being hard on yourself about it wasn't good enough. You didn't quite accomplish what you intended to. It's that. It's never good enough. Comparisonitis often looks like looking at others, seeing what they're doing and putting yourself down because you're not doing what they're doing. You're not showing up the way that they're showing up. You're not reaching the levels that they are reaching. And just generally being unkind to yourself when you compare yourself to others. And that low self-confidence. So confidence refers to your belief in your own abilities. So having low self-confidence looks like not believing that you are capable of something. And so how that relates to imposter syndrome is just not having that, knowing that you can accomplish, that you are capable, that you can figure it out. Okay. So, and again, here I'm just touching on a couple of key things. So the impact of imposter syndrome, a couple of those are, especially as entrepreneurs, one can tend to quit too early. before they reach the levels of success that they want to reach, before they complete what they came to do in that business. Because the thought there is perhaps that they just aren't capable, that they'll never be able to do it, that they were fooling themselves to think that they might be able to do that. And a big one here is undercharging for our services and products. Not thinking that your products or services are of the value that you would otherwise charge if you felt confident in that. So let me know in the comments if either one of those resonates with you, if you've been there, or if you're still there. Okay, so here's the good news. There's a way forward. And that can look like noticing and journaling. And what that means is literally just paying attention to when the imposter syndrome shows up. Are there particular times when it shows up? Around what specifics? What are the thoughts that you're having when it shows up? What are the emotions that are coming up for you? And journaling on all of those things. And then perhaps journaling over time and starting to notice patterns that are emerging for you. The second note here is community. And what that means is leaning into community of people who really understand where you're coming from and can show up in a supportive way, the way that you need them to in that moment. Reframes. So what that looks like is taking a particular thought that you're having and not necessarily hopping to the exact opposite end. If it feels good and it feels authentic to you, absolutely do that. But that may just mean taking a step in the opposite direction, just a little step from where you currently are in the direction to where you want to be. And if you need examples of how to do that, or you'd like to work through some of those reframes together, or if you'd like some journal prompts for that matter, reach out to me and I'd be happy to work with you on some of those things. The next note I have here is give yourself permission to be imperfect. And I know that sounds simple, but I also know that that is so much easier said than done. Yes, of course, we all know that perfection doesn't exist, that nobody is perfect. But are you really truly living that? Are you really allowing yourself the grace and the space to not be perfect? Or are you still being hard on yourself when you don't reach those levels of perfection? And again, if you need support around that, we can work through that. And then lastly, here I have identifying your successes. And that just means looking at the things that you've done already that you have succeeded in. And you can do a couple things with that. You can allow that to propel you forward if you're really able to be in the moment of emotion around those successes. And then you can use that as for examples of how you've done it before. And if you've done it before, you can do it again. And can you believe that? And if you can't believe that, what more do we need to add to that? Okay, so that's just a little bit on imposter syndrome. There's so much more to add to that. But for now, in order to keep the momentum going, I have created a printable worksheet for you where you can work through the thoughts that are coming up for you around imposter syndrome, some of those things that you're thinking when that feeling arises, and how you can get to the bottom of that. So it looks like working through specific prompts that help you to determine, is there validity around the imposter syndrome when it's showing up? Is there somewhere where you really can improve or perhaps should, hate to use that word, but perhaps should improve? Or is there really more of a fear at the bottom of that just needs to be worked through? So I will provide that for you, that link for you in the comments. And with that, I thank you for your time and I look forward to speaking with you further on this in the near future.